The price of betrayal. Emma thought she had everything she ever wanted. Her life, built on the bedrock of security, was the envy of others. A beautiful home, a successful husband, and a marriage that looked picture perfect from the outside. Ethan, her husband, was a man of structure and ambition, constantly building something: his career, their future, their lives. At first, it was enough. She loved the order, the sense of direction. But somewhere along the way, that sense of security turned suffocating. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt more like a museum of their fading connection. Conversations with Ethan had become clinical, each word serving a practical purpose: scheduling, managing, maintaining. The warmth that once lingered between them had evaporated, replaced by long stretches of silence and hollow smiles at dinner parties. Emma wasn't unhappy, she told herself, just restless. Maybe all marriages felt this way after a few years, after the excitement wore off and routine set in. But that thought didn't comfort her. If anything, it terrified her. One Friday night, with Ethan working late again, Emma couldn't bear the emptiness of the house. The quiet pressed in on her from all sides. Without thinking too much about it, she grabbed her coat and headed out the door, her steps quick and unsteady, as if she were running from something. She found herself at a bar she hadn't been to in years, one of those places that felt familiar, but distant, like a memory she'd forgotten she had. She ordered a drink, savoring the way the glass felt cool and solid in her hand. For a moment, she let herself drift, away from thoughts of Ethan and their carefully constructed life. Then came the voice. Deep, smooth, with a trace of mischief. "Emma, right? It's been a while?" She turned to see Nick, an old college friend, leaning against the bar, his smile as disarming as ever. He was older, sure, but time had been kind to him, more than kind. He had that easy confidence, the kind that came from living a life full of stories, a life she hadn't tasted in years. "Nick?" Emma blinked, caught off guard. "What are you doing here?" "Passing through," he said with a shrug, as if life were as simple as that. Just passing through. They fell into conversation easily, the years between them melting away. Nick had always been someone who could fill a room with his energy, and tonight was no different. He spoke about his travels, his adventures, his life filled with spontaneity, everything that Emma's life wasn't. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like herself again. Not someone's wife. Not the polished woman hosting perfect dinner parties. Just Emma. Hours passed in a blur of laughter and shared memories. They walked out of the bar together, the city lights casting a soft glow on the sidewalk. There was something unspoken between them now, something Emma hadn't felt in years. When they reached his apartment, she hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew what she was about to do. She knew the consequences. But in that moment, all she could think about was how alive she felt standing next to him. And so, she crossed the line. The next morning, the weight of what she'd done hit her like a wave. She woke in Nick's bed, the sun filtering through the blinds, her heart heavy with guilt. She slipped out of the apartment quietly, her mind racing, trying to make sense of it all. By the time she got home, her stomach churned with dread. Ethan was at the kitchen table, eyes glued to his laptop. He barely glanced up when she walked in. "You're back early," he said, his voice neutral, uninterested. She mumbled something about an early breakfast with a friend and hurried upstairs. He didn't ask for details. He didn't notice the change in her. Days turned into weeks, and Emma found herself living a double life. She and Nick saw each other when they could. Quick, secretive meetings that made her heart race in ways she'd forgotten it could. With Nick, there was no planning, no predictability. It was intoxicating. He made her feel desired, alive, free from the shackles of her life with Ethan. But the guilt gnawed at her, even as she ignored it. She knew she couldn't keep this up forever. Ethan, for all his distance, wasn't stupid. He noticed how she hid her phone, how her smile seemed less and less genuine when they were together. There were moments when his eyes would linger on her for a second too long, as if he were seeing something new, something unfamiliar. One evening, when Emma left the house to meet Nick, Ethan followed her. He had been suspecting for a while, piecing together the little clues she hadn't thought to hide. And when he saw them together, his suspicions were confirmed. But Ethan didn't confront her then. He was a man who planned, who calculated. Confrontation was too easy, too messy. He needed something cleaner, something permanent. A few days later, Nick disappeared. Emma's calls went unanswered. His apartment was empty, his phone disconnected. Panic clawed at her chest as she realized he was gone. She spent hours dialing his number, each unanswered ring making her heart race faster. What had happened to him? When she returned home that night, Ethan was waiting for her. He stood in the kitchen, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "I know," he said quietly, his voice as cold as the winter air outside. Emma's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" "I know about Nick. I know everything." Her heart sank as the truth hit her like a tidal wave. He had known all along. "What did you do to him?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan's lips curved into a small, cruel smile. "You'll never see him again. That's all you need to know." Emma felt the room spin, her legs weak beneath her. "Ethan, please." But there was no pleading with him. The man she once thought she knew was gone, replaced by someone cold, calculating, and vindictive. "You made your choice, Emma," Ethan said, his voice low and steady. "Now, you live with it." The days after were a blur. Nick was gone. Her marriage was in ruins. She had nothing left. No love, no passion, no escape. The life she had wanted so desperately to flee was now all that remained, a hollow shell of what it once was, and she was trapped inside it, alone.